Welcome to Talking Jets. My name's Ryan and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside our panel, Matt O'Leary and Green Bean, who left his volume on his YouTube. Well, we get started going. That's all right, Green Bean. Guys, Matt and Green Bean's links to their channels are down below in the description, so make sure you join that. I also actually added a link down below for you guys. It's under Sided. If you see in the description, I've had a bunch of you guys watch this stream after the fact. So what I wanted to do was I met these guys from Sided, and they have this discussion forum thing that goes on. So basically I post a question or a comment, and then you guys can argue about it, and whoever has the best arguments over the course of a week, I'm going to leave it live for a week. I guess as you accumulate points based on likes and people who like your point of view, you could earn Amazon gift cards. So kind of a cool little thing. I haven't played with it too much. I just started doing it this week, so we'll see how it goes. There's a comment question over there to get things started. Do you want the Jets to go 0-16? It ends next Tuesday. So who knows? Let's give it a shot together. Let's see how it works. We're going to do this the same way we do every week. We're going to rattle off a few questions of the trending topics for the week, and then we'll get into some comment questions from you guys. So first up, today we heard that Pierre Desir was going to be released by the New York Jets. How are we feeling about this? Matt, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, bad for the tank because this guy was just zero effort at all times. But in all seriousness, no business being on this roster. It doesn't make any sense because he was just taking up space. He's not going to be here next year. His effort was piss poor. I don't know if you saw his last play as a Jet, the effort that he gave on that. Was it a touch? No, he got inside the 5, but I forget who he was covering. Just basically like lightly jogged after him the entire way, just mind-numbing. But I'm excited to see more of Bryce Hall and Bless Austin. I think Bless has struggled a little bit in coverage this year. Very good tackler, but I think he's struggled in coverage. So I would like to see him get better at that down the stretch. And Bryce Hall, I was high on in this year's draft. I think he can be a starter. And I definitely want to see more of him. So that opens the door for those two guys. So we'll see what they have down the stretch here.
Green Bean, how are you feeling about the release of Pierre Desir?
Yeah, I mean, Matt nailed it, man. It's like as far as the tank goes, Pierre Desir is a lockdown #1 premier cornerback for the tank. He's the exact guy you want. It looks like you're trying. You gave him money as a free agent. You brought him over, start him, and he sucks. That's the guy you want out there. Even does gets a couple picks, so he looks like maybe he's having a couple bad weeks or whatever.
Almost doing everything you need.
Yeah, but them cutting him, and then right on the heels of the other move, which we'll talk about, signing Elflein. It seems like maybe we're gearing up for a big late season Adam Gase saving push, which scares.
God, don't tell me this. Don't tell me this.
That's where my brain goes. But let me say this: as far all that stuff aside, as far as like good or bad for the Jets, I think it's clear that Pierre Desir is taking the Trumaine Johnson route and just, hey, I'm going to take my money. I'm not getting hurt for this crappy team, and I'm not even going to twist an ankle running real fast. So he's the kind of guy that you do want to make an example of. And like Matt said, guys like Bryce Hall, who we're big fans of in this panel, and also Lamar Jackson when he's not covering DeAndre Hopkins in his first start from a free agent, rookie, an undrafted free agent rookie. He's someone else who has some potential too. So let's get the young kids out there, man. Even is Javelin Guidry still on the team? Bring him up from the practice squad. Poole is put on IR, and he can play the slot. Let's see the kids. That's how I see it. So it's good on that front.
Yeah, I'm going to echo your same sentiments, guys. I am very happy very sad he is gone for the tank, but very happy we get to see some of the younger guys. I'm really excited for Bryce Hall. I think that's going to be exciting. I think when we were looking at Pierre Desir, from this year. He's played in 9 games for the New York Jets, had 514 snaps in coverage. This is why he's gone. 42.1 in coverage. His tackling, it's weird. He had 4 games where he was really, really good. And then he had 5 games where he was really, really bad. So he's kind of middle of the pack there. His run defense was great, 72.8, so not the worst. But when you're expected to be the number 1 corner on our team, coverage would be a little nicer than the run stopping ability. So yeah, look, I'm excited to see Bryce Hall. I want to see some more playing time out of him. I agree. I think Lamar Jackson is probably someone that we'd like to see a little bit more of. And what do you have to lose playing the young guys? Like, I guess we could sort of transition to this. I didn't make a little topic thing for it yet, so forgive me.
While you do that, can I just say, I hope this is the end of the experiment of taking all the Colts defensive backs. We had Hairston, and we traded the 6th for Quincy Wilson, and we signed Pierre Desir, and is this experiment over? I hope. Rex Hogan, I know you got friends over there, but can we settle down already? These aren't the guys, right? Fair enough.
So, speaking of guys trying to prevent injury and whatnot, I want to talk a little bit about Sam Darnold being held out of this week's game. He was out for the Patriot game on Monday night. We had the bye week off, obviously. And then we are going into this Chargers game. He's sitting out, and he says he's looking towards his future and making sure he doesn't have any long-term injuries. Greenbean, what were your thoughts on the Sam Darnold being held out? Us playing Flacco, whatever. What were your thoughts?
I think it boils down to Sam Darnold being looked at as a valuable, commodity maybe. We don't want to exacerbate this injury. It's already the 2 shoulder injuries in this season. If it ends up getting worse and it becoming a 3rd shoulder injury in the same season, I can't think that increases his value. And for Sam, I think he's finally looking at this as, hey, this isn't really my team anymore, and we're not going anywhere this year. So, hey, I'm going to heal up and I'm going to get 100%, and I'm not going to sacrifice myself for a team that, number 1, isn't going anywhere, and number 2, more than likely is going to move on from me. And that's smart.
Matt, what are your thoughts on the Sam Darnold situation?
Yeah, I mean, I have no reason to believe that he needs to be out there right now. If he's not 100%, don't play, man. There's no reason to. Would I rather see him play than Joe Flacco? Absolutely. Like, we talked about this numerous times. Watching Joe Flacco and Frank Gore on a 0-9 football team is pointless. But at the same time, like for Sam, you don't want to hurt yourself even worse. To me, I don't think he ever fully recovered from the Denver game. So just sit out a week. If it's another couple of weeks, fine. And if we get a couple of games down the stretch of Sam, I'm cool with that. But his time here is coming to an end, whether we like it or not. It sucks, and it's really sad to say that. But I think based on where this season is going, if you're picking in the top 3, which I don't see a scenario in which the Jets aren't picking in the top 3, they're taking a quarterback, and they're going to move on, and they'll trade him for a pick. And, he'll get a chance somewhere else, but for his sake, no. Why are you going to go out there and hurt yourself worse right now? Doesn't make sense.
Right.
Max's NY Jets, thank you for becoming the new member of the Jets Talk 24/7 channel. So big props to you. The Sam Darnold situation for me, I'm very much okay with him, preserving his body. I think the Jets didn't do him any favors with how they drafted over the last few years, how they brought in free agents over the last few years. So him worrying about himself after the Jets have not worried about him, I'm okay with. He's not going to be here. That's the reality of the situation. And look, we're going to get a top 3 pick. I would be shocked if we won 3 games. I think we're stuck at 2 at best. I think, we could pull one out against either the Chargers, maybe the Raiders, or maybe the Patriots at the end of the year. But I think the Jets have a good shot at going 0-16 still. I think for me, I don't like that we're seeing Flacco, because Flacco looked like he kind of had a little more spark last week.
Yeah.
I would like to see Morgan and just see the young guys out and play. Same thing with the cornerbacks. I don't want to see not Jamal Adams. I don't want to see Joe Flacco. I don't want to see Frank Gore out there winning games potentially for the Jets. If they win with P. Ryan, if they win with Mims, I could sort of wrap my head around it. I don't want it to happen, but I could wrap my head around it. I don't know. What do you guys think about Flacco and him starting?
Well, it sucks. It's like we've said over and over again, having these two guys with namely Flacco and Frank Gore in here ruining our future it's like salt on the wound. It's like, look, we already suck. We've all pretty much become comfortable with it. We're wearing our suctitude like a warm blanket, and we're all talking about what we can do with it and everything. And then Joe Flacco and Frank Gore come in for their 10-minute rental and they ruin it. That's not what we want to see, because you nailed it, Ryan. I mean, it's like Joe Flacco looked like he was in the mood to show people what he has left in the tank, after his surgery and all that sort of stuff. So I don't think Joe Flacco is in on the tank, so to speak. So Joe Flacco would really love to parlay this garbage season into a further, into furthering his career. If he can get a potential starting job again somewhere or whatever, I'm sure he wants to do that if he can.
Matt, what do you think about Joe Flacco and him, starting instead of Morgan, or do you have any issue with any of this?
Not really. Like Green Bean said, he's trying to extend his career, whether it's as a backup here or somewhere else. I don't think he ever gets another starting job, but I think he wants to stay in the league, and I completely respect that for him. And I got to give him credit. He played well against New England. Do I think he replicates that this week? I would say probably not. But Flacco, he's a professional quarterback. He's not going to do anything that's going to really advance the needle too much forward. He's not going to bring you down a whole lot. He's just meh. And even at his peak, he was pretty much a meh quarterback. So I'm not worried about him ruining the tank or anything. I don't think he gives the Jets a significant upgrade over Sam Darnold. You could argue that he played the best quarterback game of the season against New England, but I'm not worried about Joe Flacco coming in and stealing a couple games. This team is still really, really bad.
Hope you're right.
Yeah, I'm hoping that he comes back down, falls down to earth. I don't want to see this team win games when we don't want to be winning games right now. I think the 3-touchdown performance was a little bit more of smoke and mirrors because of, getting everything back. Patriots were hurt. Monday Night Football, a little bit of juice is flowing. I don't see it happening quite the same way. I think the Patriots left some plays out on the field. I think this Jets defense was kind of Swiss cheese, and I think the Chargers will be able to take a little bit more advantage of us. And I also think the pass rush from the Chargers is going to be better than what we faced against the Patriots as well. So I don't see him having quite the same success. Let's talk a little bit about our new addition to the team. We added Pat Elflein from the Minnesota Vikings. He was drafted 70th overall by the Minnesota Vikings in the 2017 draft. The Jets actually owned that pick originally, and we traded it to the Vikings. And at that time, I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. We need a center. And the Jets just traded out when this guy's on the board. That was the guy I had him mocked to us in probably the second round. I don't know if I had him in the third round, but I was like, this guy falls to us in the third round, and we don't draft him. What the heck? Now, we go into his rookie season. He plays relatively well. He's been pretty bad the last 3 years. He was injured this year, so not really a big sample size. He's only played in one game this year. But what are your guys' thoughts on Pat Elflein? Matt, I'll throw it to you first.
I think this is intriguing because, yeah, he does have a ton of starts under his belt. I don't know if he's going to be an upgrade at either of the guard positions or potentially center. He can play, both guard positions or center, which I like. But maybe you give him a look down the stretch here and in the last 7 games and see if he's someone you want to give a shot. Kind of like, it almost reminds me of what Alex Lewis was last year for this team, where he kind of came in and eventually became their best starter. I don't necessarily think that Eflin's going to be their best starter here, but Their interior of the offensive line is terrible right now, so I have no issue with them bringing in depth, especially a young player who, maybe give them a look and say, hey, we'll bring you back on a cheap deal. Why not compete for a job with, Cameron Clark or, someone you pick up in free agency or the draft? I have no issue with it.
Green Bean, what are your thoughts with Pat Elflein?
Well, it's interesting how this stuff goes round and round. The Minnesota Vikings have our previous offensive line coach as
and
well.
Dakota Dozier. Dakota Dozier was the one that replaced him.
Right, and Dakota Dozier. So there's a lot of weird stuff, that kind of goes around. Like you said, the pick was ours. Another that happened last year as well in a roundabout way. The guy I really wanted in the 6th or 7th, Kenny Willekes, ended up being taken by the Vikings, and that was originally our pick. And there's all kinds of crazy stuff like that if you look too deep into this stuff, like I tend to do. I think 6 teams put in a waiver claim for this guy. He's young. A lot of teams saw the potential there. I don't think hey, all he needed to do was come to our wonderful coaching staff and our offensive line schemes, and that's all he's going to need to revitalize his career or anything. But he absolutely is the type of guy you want to add to the rotation. He, like Matt said, he has starts under his belt in NFL games for 3 years. The bad thing about him, like you said, he hasn't played all that well, and he's penalized a lot. He gets a lot of holding calls. And that's what happens when you're getting beat. Holding calls are a derivative of someone taking advantage of you. It's like that desperate attempt to at least not get your quarterback smashed. You know what I mean? That's what's going on there. And he also has a few false starts. Last year, I think he had 11 penalties or something like that. So he can work on his discipline. He's not coming in here as a world beater. But again, 6 teams said, hey, I want that guy. I want that guy. And we just happen to be first in the pecking order right now because of our record. So I look at it as a positive signing. Again, I don't know what we're doing because we're supposed to be tanking. I don't want to fortify things right now. But Alex Lewis is having a treacherous stretch right now. Van Roten seems to have settled down. And it was the other way earlier in the season. Alex Lewis was solid and Van Roten was Swiss cheese, but it's kind of reversed. And Alex Lewis is having some trouble. And really what that's showing is that he's a reserve guard. He's not really NFL. He's a quality reserve guy. And I think if Elflein can just be, if he does end up at guard, he can be a little bit more, a little change of scenery, change of pace, and maybe give us a little bit of an upgrade there. And that would be good for whoever is playing quarterback. I think it's a good sign. It can't hurt anything.
Yeah, that's just it. You guys both touched on it. I think with Elflein, we get to see a few games with him in our system. Joe Douglas gets to evaluate him up close and personal, see if it. I think it's probably someone he may have been trying to target in free agency anyway. So to just pick him up and just sort of give him a few reps for $1 million, it's worth it. It's not really going to kill our cap. You brought up Alex Lewis. He is a 64.9 on Pro Football Focus right now. He did start off hot. The first 2 games of the season, he played well, at least in the run blocking game. The pass blocking part of his game has been really bad. Grades out as a 52 overall, and that's helped out by 1 game at 87. Everything else is drastically lower than that, so it's really not been good for him there. Let's bring up Van Roten's scores because I have heard he has been playing a lot better, and it definitely shows. Basically, from week 5 on, he has been significantly better. So if we look at next year's offensive line right now, you have Becton. Lewis is the starter right now. I'd imagine we're probably going to try and fix that, whether that's Cameron Clark, bring in an additional outside guy like a Elflein. Then you have McGovern, who could potentially shift over to guard if we decide we want to go center or something like that. Yeah. You got Van Roten, who I like this. I think we have him under a 3-year contract, so if he's going to continue to play better, I'm all for it. And then I think right tackle is still going to be a question mark. We still have Fant under contract. We have Edoga, but it doesn't really give me the warm and fuzzies. Now, there's a few guys. I think Matt and I kicked a few names around last week after you had hopped off Green Bean, but the Saints are like $90 million over the salary cap next year. So they're going to have to cut a ton of players. And there's a few players that are coming up on contracts that the Jets could really use. Two of them specifically being their right tackle. What the hell's his name? I'm going to lose it right now. It's like Ragnow or something like that. Let me find it real quick so I'm not just butchering this name. Oh, God. Ryan Ramczyk. R-A-M-C, yeah, however you say that name. He's one of the best right tackles in the league. He's coming up for a contract. So is Marcus Lattimore, the corner. So two guys that, if I'm looking at the Saints, if I could trade Sam Darnold somewhere and maybe try to get a player in return, those are the two guys I'd want to look at. If you had to throw an additional pick their way or, whatever, they kind of need to facilitate that. I'd be interested in doing that. Let's move on to another topic. So not so much our player related, but there was a video that came out, and Matt, you posted it on your Instagram, of Jamal Adams claiming that he left New York or forced his way out of New York because of his depression and the depression he was feeling of being a New York Jet. Green Bean, I want to get your point of view on this because I know we've talked a little bit off the air, but could you explain a little bit about how you feel about this sort of situation?
Yeah, well, a lot of the guys that are in the chat and that watch this, they may or may not know. I'm sure a lot of them don't know. But the field that I work in is the mental health field, predominantly addiction, but also depression, anxiety, PTSD, all those trauma, all those kinds of things. And what Jamal is talking about is not depression. He's using a word to make himself to show that he's overcome something massive. But that's not really what he's saying. And I know that you don't have to put all this emphasis on these words and all that, but the truth is that what he's talking about is really it's derogatory toward people that really struggle with this. Depression is debilitating. You don't cure depression by a move to another city, which by example is number one in depression in the country, Seattle. So I mean, whatever he's talking about, he's really talking more about he was unhappy with not getting what he wanted. And look, he wanted to win, so you got to give him that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to win. But the way that he's going about this is he's painting this picture that he's some sort of shining knight hero that did everything he had to do to change his mental health status. Like when he says he would sit in a dark room and not even turn on his phone after a loss. I mean, shit, 2/3 of the fans in the stadium are doing that every week, Jamal. I mean, this is our fucking life, for God's sakes, as Jets fans. So for me personally, I don't want to say I take offense because that's not really the word, but it bothers me to hear him talking like that. And the thing is with Jamal Adams, it's like, we can say whatever we want. We have a lot of fun about his whether or not he sucks, whether or not he was worth the picks, all those kinds of things. It's all football and fun. But honestly, this is the kind of stuff where I think Jamal Adams has zero real awareness on what he's saying. He's just talks. And I think sooner than later, it's already starting to happen in Seattle. I ended up talking to a Seattle fan, I don't know, the end of last week, and they were saying that his act is already wearing thin there. Like they don't like the way he's playing and his talking. They're just kind of sick of it. They didn't like the tweet to Diggs like, "Hey, thanks for the rep." Like that's all. Jamal Adams is full of hot air, and I think this particular case, I hope that he learns something, like that he gets a little bit more heat, because this is something that thousands die from every single year, that sometimes it's like insurmountable. You can't get out of it, and you don't cure depression by moving. It doesn't happen. So that's my thoughts on it. It's a little bit of a shitty thing to say.
Matt, how are you feeling about the Jamal Adams and depression comments?
Yeah, I mean, Green Bean said it perfectly, and he's obviously, more knowledgeable on the subject than I am. But this really rubbed me the wrong way. Um, like you said, real people struggle with depression, anxiety, addiction, so much of these things. And I don't know. To me, he was just trying to look for another thing to pass blame off on. Like he can never just accept himself that like he is partly to blame. At first it was, oh, I want to get paid and that's the reason why I'm so upset. Now it was I was depressed and wanted out. Like what is it, man? And just by him coming out all this time later and going with this narrative, which is like what are we up to, the fourth different narrative now at this point that he's trying to push? I don't buy it for a second. And to me, that's horrible that you're going to go out and claim a serious mental health issue. No. And like Green Bean said, moving across the country, that's not something that's going to cure your mental health either, or getting paid the big bucks. Even that's not going to help out with depression. It's a very, very serious thing that I don't think he realized at the time what he was saying and how a lot of people are going to perceive that, because I don't know if you looked online, it wasn't going over well. Obviously, Green Bean and I are both upset about it, and I know you are too, Ryan. It's just, I thought it was really insensitive. I wouldn't say that I was directly offended by it, but it really, like I said, it rubbed me the wrong way, and I think it was extremely insensitive for him to say that, for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly where I felt. I didn't like what the way he used it. My first thought was like, okay, look, if you've got depression, like the initial thought is always, well, what's the, you know, get your head right. Let's figure it out. And then the other part is like, well, dude, you said you'd play here if you got a bunch of money, and then like you shot your way out of town. Like there's no part of me that believes him at all. And it's almost like the idea of someone claiming they were sexually abused and then like finding out that it was never actually a thing. You're hurting all those people who are actually affected. You're not helping the cause. You're causing more harm there. So I don't like it. I think Jamal is a piece of shit. I would absolutely love to see him lose. Like if the Jets have to win one game all season, like if we have to lose out on Trevor Lawrence because we tie the fucking Jaguars, I want that win to be against Seattle so bad, like in the worst way. And I don't know what I want to have happen to Jamal during that game, but I want him to be embarrassed somehow. I want, whether it's Mims to just cross him up or like, I don't know. I just want him to look very silly in that Seattle game. So I think we're all on board with this sort of topic, with this discussion. So yeah, Jamal, you can go kick rocks. And guys, if you want to chime in on that, we'll have another question up talking about Jamal probably in that sided debate. Or if you guys want to post something yourself, you could do that as well. We can kind of kick some stuff around. Max is NY Jets. I saw you comment it. I'll get to you in just a second, Rebecca. Yeah. Max is NY Jets. I appreciate you joining the channel. I can't message you directly, so reach out on the Jets Discord to me privately. I want to link up with you real quick. But I'll get to the two questions on the side in just a few minutes. Green Bean, you were talking. Sorry.
Oh yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Do you think that Gase and, Dowell Loggins have the presence of mind and like the wherewithal to like attack Jamal Adams and exploit him? You know what I mean? Like with a Mims, with a Herndon, like, do you think that that'll be what we do? Or do you think that they'll shy away from him?
I think they'll try to attack that defense however they can. It's going to be, I don't know if it's still 32nd in the league, but it's pretty bad. I would hope that we know all his weaknesses, and we should absolutely be going for like the throat when we play. Yeah, that's what I want to see. Go for the throat, go after him, make him look silly, do what Stefan Diggs did to him last week, just have him spinning around, giving up a bunch of yards.
Oh, that was great.
I saw a post. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I don't know if I'm going to get it that fast, but it was on Jet Nation. And
was it the business decision?
No, it wasn't the business. Oh, well, I could tell you about. Well, I don't know if you're talking about the same thing I'm talking about, but
the play against Rams.
No. So I didn't say that.
Oh, business decision. Yeah, that was good.
So
that was good.
So I'll let you say that because I don't exactly know what's going
Okay.
Ryan Neal is the backup for Jamal Adams this year. Neal has 2 interceptions. Adams has 0. Neal, 4 pass deflections. Adams, 1. Sacks, Jamal is leading with 5.5. That's more than Neal, who has none. Neal has 3 tackles for the loss. Jamal has 6. Yards per target, Neal has 10.4. Jamal 13.2. So Neal wins again there. Quarterback rating when targeted, 73.7 for Neal, 118.6 for Jamal. Neal has 3 quarterback hurries and 3 quarterback knockdowns on 15 blitzes. Jamal has 4 quarterback hurries, 3 quarterback knockdowns, so just 1 more hurry than Neal, but he has blitzed 51 times compared to the 15. That is just brutal.
So
Like how?
Yeah, 5 sacks and 51 blitzes.
Yeah. Now, how much money did Jamal Adams cost himself by shooting his way out of town and getting to Seattle? Like, he more than likely was going to get paid a bucket load of money after this season by the New York Jets, even if it wasn't the $20 million that he was rumored to want. But if he just stays and plays good soldier, more than likely the Jets are paying him. And now he's playing as poorly as he is. Seattle's not re-signing him this offseason. Forget that. He's going to play his 5th-year option. I could see them franchise tagging him and then just letting him walk after that. Like, I don't see him getting the big money he wants. It could cost him millions and millions of dollars by shooting his way out of New York.
Yeah, I agree. I think he is going to cost himself some money, which is, well, these are the things you just hate to see, Ryan. You really hate to see these things.
Oh, man, it just makes me smile on the inside. Guys, we're going to get into some of your comment questions now. Let's see. What was the first one that I saw pop up? V-Man. Hey, did you hear the Texans might promote Crennel to head coach? One less head coach opening to worry about. By the way, Matt called into your podcast in iconic character voice.
Okay, I'm recording after this, so I can't wait to hear it, V-Man.
Look, with Crennel possibly taking over the Texans, it would be interesting, I guess. I always thought Bieniemy would go there. I think that probably gives us a pretty good shot to get Bieniemy, I would think. Maybe the Falcons are another team I could see him going to, something that's got a little more firepower. What do you guys think? Does the Crennel hire potentially, taking the Texans out of it, how does that affect the Jets head coaching search? Matt, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I don't. If I was a Texans fan, I'd be upset. I don't want Romeo Crennel as my head coach. In the interim role, fine, I guess. I mean, if your choices are Crennel or Bill O'Brien, sure, I guess. But it's easier for the Jets now to go about their head coaching search because it's just another, there's only so many vacancies in the league, and if you take one away, then you're probably getting a better candidate. I just hope they make the right decision. That's the thing that I'm worried about.
Green Bean, how are you feeling about it?
I'm all over Matt O'Leary today. I think he said it well. I would not want Romeo Crennel as my head coach. He's fine at his positional coach or even defensive coordinator. He's good. I think it's a silly move. Who is the GM down there? Do they have one? They don't, right? Like who's doing this? Like
I guess I don't know. Their team president or whatever. You got me.
They have a football guy like so many other teams don't, or at least one. I think it's a silly move on their part. I mean, he's a football guy. He's been around a long time. A lot of guys will fail once. Look at Pete Carroll's a good example. Bill Belichick is another. So it happens. Like Matt said, if it was my team, after my coach sent DeAndre Hopkins away for a second-round pick and all that jazz, I would hope for something a little bit more invigorating, some pizzazz. But I don't know. As far as us, I don't know. I don't know if it affects us. I don't see us in any, I don't know if we're going to be in a bidding war for any particular coach. I think Joe Douglas is going to end up using his lines of communication and there'll be a smooth track in. It's his guy. Very similar to when Mike McCagnon was fired. It took a little while, but everybody knew Joe Douglas was coming. I mean, we interviewed guys, but it was just no, this is the guy. I see something similar happening with Joe Douglas. Now, I don't know who that is, if it's, Greg Roman is one that pops up, but even if it's not him, I still see it going towards something like someone that Joe Douglas knows and feels good about already and trusts and all that sort of stuff. So, and I don't see Romeo Crennel or the Texans, let me say, taking away our candidate. I think you got a good point. Eric Bieniemy was favored to go to the Texans, so maybe he's around now. But I think the Falcons was a good pull for Eric Bieniemy. I think they might go in that direction and try to salvage Matt Ryan's last few years. Maybe draft a young kid to sit behind him for a little while, a la Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. And I can see Eric Bieniemy fitting in there, or at least the idea of him. So I don't know. I don't think it's consequential to all that much of a degree with us, but I think it's interesting that they're just like, we're just going to keep this guy.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually like if that's the legit final like answer. If Cornell's off the board, I wasn't going to bring him in to be head coach anyway, so it doesn't no issues there. If it means Bieniemy's possibly available, that's cool. I'm good with another person that could potentially be available. Again, Bieniemy wasn't my top choice, but I think it's probably in the end going to be inconsequential for the New York Jets. Max is NY Jets. So he has two comments. I'll read the second one because he put it in two different line items. Who are your top 4 head coaching candidates? His are Eric Bieniemy, number 1, PJ Fleck, number 2, number 3 is Greg Roman, and then his 4th is Jim Harbaugh. He instantly turned a 6-10 49ers team, and he turned them into 13-3 49ers team. Yeah, look, so to sort of wrap up that, Bieniemy, I'm not super high on just because I question how much responsibility he had on the play calling side of things with Andy Reid being there. I don't hate the guy by any means. I'd be excited if we got him, but he wouldn't be my first option. PJ Fleck's an interesting coach. I have not dug deep enough into him. I know Matt has talked about him a little bit on the show. So he could probably bring up a little bit more about that. Greg Roman is someone that Green Bean and I have both said we believe is probably going to be, I would think, a front runner because there's a connection with Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas was an offensive line scout when Greg Roman was the offensive line assistant down in Baltimore. I could see that really filling the void. Greg Roman is from New Jersey. He's had a hand in developing Tyrod Taylor, Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith, Lamar Jackson, or at least building offenses around them. Now, I will say with Greg Roman, what scares me is talking to 49er fans, talking to Ravens fans. They are both thinking that Roman is like a 1 year and done kind of offensive coordinator, like he gets the most out of guys for a season, and then it starts to catch back up to him. One of the reasons why the Baltimore Ravens are not performing the way they were last year. So we'll see if that's the case. In terms of Jim Harbaugh, I agree. I think Jim Harbaugh is probably like the second favorite person to come into the New York Jets. I would say Greg Roman and him are probably 1A, 1B in some capacity because of the popular name. It's an instant, recognizable name. There's the Harbaugh connection. So I don't know how close Joe is with John Harbaugh, Jim's brother, but maybe there's some kind of connection there. It feels like the Jets and Woody Johnson may want to bring in a legitimate head coach if they think that Jim Harbaugh can be the guy to groom Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, whoever that is. I get it. It doesn't feel like a coach I want to bring in, though. Matt, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think about the head coaching options? Who are your kind of top guys?
I really like Arthur Smith a lot. I know Tennessee struggled a little bit the last couple of weeks, but I still am a big fan of him. Joe Brady is climbing my list very high. I think Roman's dropped a couple of spots since I made that top 10 video. Bieniemy is still high on my list. I like him. PJ Fleck's interesting. If you want to go the college route, him or Matt Campbell would be two names that I would really like from the college route. I think both of those guys can draw comparisons to Matt Rule in terms of like taking over a program and building a good culture and stuff like that. Harbaugh, I really can't say this enough. I want no part of Jim Harbaugh. I really don't. He scares the life out of me. I think he would come in here and just want total control, which I don't think is good, especially when the Jets have a bizarre reporting structure of the coach reporting to the owner and the GM also reporting to the owner. I don't think he's been very good at Michigan. I don't think he's done a good job developing players there. Yes, he was successful in the early 2010s in San Francisco. He also forced his way out because he was fighting for more power and wanted to overthrow the GM. So there's just a lot going on there that rubs me the wrong way. I don't like his personality either. That bothers me. So I would want to stay very far away from him. He's my this go round Mike McCarthy, who I want no part of.
Yeah.
Green Bean, how are you feeling about the head coaching search, and who are your top candidates?
Well, look, I want to answer that, but I want to bring our attention briefly to the chat. Matt, well, there's a couple really interesting comments from Deep Submerge. Matt, I want to take you backstage behind the meat curtain.
What does that mean?
I know what a meat curtain is. You can't be saying that on TV.
You know what I mean? And where's the other one? Hold on a second. From Moon Princess says to me, where the hell did it go? Shit. Something about getting her all slimy or something. So there's some goodness going on.
Oh.
Hey, MC, you might want to help us out over there, man. So I couldn't ignore it. So I guess they did their job. But so here's the thing, a couple of interesting things. Like what you said about Greg Roman is one of the things that's a knock on him, that he tends to come out of the gate like rapid fire, and then teams kind of learn what he's doing and then can settle down, and start to be able to perform better against his offenses, and they tend to hit a wall. One thing I'll say about that is that he's created enough offenses that people had to figure it out. That's one thing. Now, when you look at the Ravens this year, Lamar Jackson's comments a couple of weeks ago said, "Oh, teams are calling out our plays." Well, that happens. That's a very, very normal thing. Teams are doing that constantly, trying to figure out your plays, and sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. But don't forget what Greg Roman did with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was considered by many not to be an NFL quarterback, right? He was more of a running back, or they even talked about wide receiver and things like that he wasn't going to make it. When John Harbaugh gave Greg Roman what they did was they talked about with what's the other offensive coordinator? He was our offensive coordinator. I want to say Muirhead.
It was
under Rex.
Marty
I want to say Gailey Morningwig.
Morningwig, right, yeah. Right. So he was the offensive coordinator, and he didn't want anything to do with that, creating a new offense for this guy that really wasn't perceived as a quarterback. Greg Roman did that, and so even though he got an MVP and all that, and obviously he's very talented, creating an offense for him is very, very difficult. He's actually a limited quarterback. He doesn't have the same, like those traditional quarterback abilities, right? So he created the offense that he can flourish in, and there's limits to that offense. But here's the thing about Greg Roman. He's been trained under the Harbaughs, right? Truly. I mean, Jim Harbaugh took him with him. That's how important he was to him. And now he's over there with John Harbaugh. These were guys that were legitimate head coaches. Like, they ran the whole operation. John Harbaugh runs the whole operation. He's not an offense, defense, special teams coordinator. That's what we want. I don't want Greg Roman's offense. I want someone who shows that he can identify a good offense. He's all a part of that, but I want a CEO head coach if possible. That's what I want. I'm tired of the Rex Ryan. I'm tired of the Todd Bowles and the Adam Gase and all that sort of stuff. It can work with a very, very special person. But, most coaches that do that don't do so well. It's like the coach wanting to be the GM. Only very special people can do all that. So I like him for that. So Greg Roman, even with the recent hits to him, is still my number one candidate. But I really like Campbell. Matt Campbell. I know he turned us down in the past, but again, he could recognize when he's talking to Mike McCagnon, um, Chris Johnson. There's a difference between talking to them and talking to Joe Douglas and Phil Savage. Okay, it's a totally different thing, and everybody in the football world knows that. Whether the fans like him or don't like him, that's all irrelevant. Football people know Joe Douglas is the real deal. So this might be a year where we can, where he would consider coming to us, especially if we have the number one pick. So Campbell's another one. With Joe Brady, I liked Joe Brady last year a little bit. Somebody turned me on to him, and I did some, and I did some research, and I thought it was brilliant for Matt Rule to pull him because people were actually looking at him as a head coach candidate, and he brought him in as his offensive coordinator. But wouldn't it be funny if Matt Rule wasn't good enough to pick his own coordinators for us, and then we end up hiring the person he picked as a coordinator as our head coach? Wouldn't that just be
that'd be
silly?
fantastic. And you just touched on it. So I actually just released my mock-off season, and spoiler alert, my head coach that I chose, which is, oddly enough, Green Bean saw my initial one on Jet Nation, where I had Greg Roman as the head coach. And as I dove into a few more comments, I decided to change that. I do think Greg Roman's probably the most likely candidate, but for me, what I would like to see is Joe Brady. And I would love to get Joe Brady in here. He's an electric offensive coach. That Carolina offense without Christian McCaffrey has been, we've seen how it's performed. We saw the LSU offense last year was a historic offense, absolutely incredible. He's learned under Sean Payton, which I love. I'm a big fan of the Saints. I love their offense. So I like that kind of forward thinking. I think that the Sean McVay, the Cliff Kingsbury, that sort of route of getting the young offensive guy, he can relate to the players more. I don't think you're necessarily looking for like the authoritarian ruler to be a head coach anymore. I think you have to be relatable to the guys in some capacity. I don't think the Belichick thing really works unless you have all the extras that come with it, and no one that's coming here has those extras. I would say someone like Brady probably needs maybe a more stable or elder type of defensive coordinator. Someone like, not Greg Williams, but like a Greg Williams or like a Wade Phillips. Some like the same way they kind of linked those guys together. So I think that's pretty interesting. Joe Brady would be my number one. I'm still going to have Greg Roman pretty high up there. I have to do more research. Arthur Smith is an interesting one. I know Matt's real high on him. So I think that would be one that I'd seriously look into. I like he's stayed with the Titans for so long, so he's kind of seen a whole bunch of different parts of the operation over a course of a long career. So that'll be an interesting option as well. Cedar County Farmer says Jets should get Mitch Trubisky. He's 3-0 in 2020. What do you guys think of that? Is Mitch Trubisky the answer to the Jets' prayers? Green Bean.
Yes.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, back up the Brinks truck. Give him $200 million. No.
Sign that.
That would be, oh God, that would be absolutely brutal. Let's see. I saw a comment in here that I wanted to get to, and where did it go? Brian Thomason, Urban Meyer, period. Coaching search over, blank check. That if you can get Urban Meyer to come out of retirement and coach, he's someone that I would be all in on. He is a head coach. He has had success everywhere he's been. Now it's very different going from a college coach to a head coach in the NFL, but he has the clout that I think a lot of young players would really like, because I'm sure he was recruiting a bunch of these guys that are coming out of this draft now. And if you have Urban Meyer sitting across from you in your dining room table when you're in high school, and now you have the opportunity to potentially play for the guy in college, that would be pretty cool. I would be all on board for Urban Meyer. I don't care what you have to pay him, get the guy in here. Matt, what do you think about Urban Meyer?
Interesting. I think it would be interesting because he has had success at two very big college programs. I don't know if he's necessarily a long-term answer because I feel like he's someone who kind of bounces around a little bit, but I am higher on him than Harbaugh, if that makes you feel better.
Sure. Green Bean, how are you feeling about it?
Look, I'll be real honest. I don't know much about Urban Meyer except from afar. Like, I know about him, but I've never, I don't know the man. I'm not really familiar. but his success speaks for itself. If we're able to get someone like him or Lincoln Riley or something like that, I'm all for it. And I agree with Matt, just to put this on the record. I don't like the idea of Harbaugh, and I don't think Joe Douglas likes the idea of Harbaugh. I think if Harbaugh comes here, it was the Johnsons overruling him, and that would piss me off. So
how about this? What if we get Greg Roman as our head coach and Harbaugh as our offensive coordinator?
I would do that.
Right? The roles have flipped.
But you know what? He's not going to do it. He's
no,
like,
he won't. He's too egomaniac.
And if he did, it would be for 1 year kind of a thing, and he'd be an asshole. And you know what I mean? I'd like to see a staff together for 3-4 years. You know what I mean? Be able to develop some shit before. Like when you look at the Ravens and the Steelers, and they have their entrenched system because they had a period of time to develop it. And now anybody who comes in or out, they can add their own creative wrinkles and everything, but they're really adhering to what's in place for the most part. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. I just crave that. Can you believe, like, Tomlin has never had a losing season, and he looks at it like, yeah, well, that's my job. You know what I mean? What else am I supposed to do? And like, they've had 4 head coaches since the 60s. It's like,
that's wild.
It isn't it, Matt? It's like, what the hell is happening? We have head coaches every 15 minutes. And it's just, I really crave that, man. So, but it's interesting to talk about, Ryan. I'll tell you that. If Greg Roman came and John Harbaugh said, I don't want to run a program, I just want to be an offensive coordinator.
I'm done with this shit. I'm done. It's going to be OC now. Perfect. I just
want to coach quarterbacks.
It's a nice little tinfoil hat thing. My head over heels love that I would love to get as the Jets head coach is Sean Payton. And with the amount of money they're going to be over the cap, it's never going to happen. But the amount of money they're over the cap, the Jets, I would give up Seattle's first-round pick to get this guy in there. We'd have to trade for him because of how his contract is currently structured, unless they just released him and he wanted to give back some money or something like that. But there is a situation I could see where Sean Payton and ownership are just kind of talking. I think it would have to be Joe Douglas calling down and just inquiring about it. Like, hey, look, this is probably the final year for Drew Brees. You're going all in on a Super Bowl this year. Your rebuild is going to take at least 2 years down in New Orleans. Are you going to hang it up when Drew Brees leaves? Are you going to wait and go through a rebuild? Are you open to the idea of coaching Trevor Lawrence and going on to your next step in your coaching career to potentially have another great run? Up here, he was with the Giants on their coaching staff. I believe, I don't even know how long ago that was. That was late 90s, I think. I want to say that's when it was. So he's not, it's not totally far-fetched, but I would say it's a little bit of a stretch. What would you guys think about Sean Payton coming to the Jets?
I don't know if I want to give up the draft capital. I love him as a coach, but I don't know if I want to give up draft picks for a coach. I don't know if I could wrap my head around that.
It worked well for the Patriots. God damn it. Yeah. Creepy, what do you think?
It didn't work so well for the Chiefs.
No, it did not.
But yeah, I mean, look, Sean Payton is one of a handful, if even that I would consider it. Mm-hmm. But like, number one, how long is his contract? Number two, does he really want to come here? Or the Saints just going, I don't care. We want the pick, and we can't. So
that's just it. You have to get Payton on board. He wouldn't just be like, yeah. I wouldn't give up a pick for him if he didn't want to be here.
Like, I hate this place. It's depressing here. I'm depressed. Yeah, I mean, but
I see what you did.
You like that? I spun it around. I think Sean Payton is such a good head coach that I would consider that. But I agree with Matt. I'm a draft, capital whore. The more the better. I did a mock draft just like an hour ago on PFN. I was in my car, and I traded the number 1 to the Jaguars. I traded the number 2 to the Redskins, and I did like.
Oh, I saw someone else do that.
I had 18 picks. Plus, I got 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, 2 fifths next year. That's how much I was like, yeah, give me a rap.
Just everything. Could you imagine if the Jets were like, oh yeah, we're gonna get insert whatever quarterback here, and we're just gonna roll with them. Like, it doesn't matter. We don't need Fields or Trevor, and we're like, okay, we're just gonna slide down one pick, and then guess what? We're good with Trey Lance. We're good with Wilson from.
I like Wilson. I was gonna say
I
he's
wouldn't
not
be.
in the same category as the other two, but I do really like Wilson. I'll say that.
I like
Yeah.
Wilson. It would be interesting if someone like fell in love with him and was like, "Hey, the Jets need so much. We're going to pass on Trevor Lawrence." I just think if you pass on Trevor Lawrence, you are under the gun. Like if you do
better
not
do the
perform,
rest
you're
right.
yeah, you better be right.
Yeah,
You can't
man.
pass on that. Oh man, I don't know. NY Sports
It's
MC.
interesting.
No, no, no. Go on, go on.
But if you could trade, let's say, just for conversational sake,
Sure.
we have the first and the Jaguars are second, and we trade back and get their second first and a first next year, or like you know what I mean, a second first and a third, whatever it is. You don't do that. I mean, like it's like it's
Well, so here's
hard.
I don't know if the Jaguars do it. Like, do the Jaguars make that move, or are they good with Fields? Like, if we had the second pick, what do we do? Do we want to give our two first round picks, and we go up to get Trevor Lawrence, or are we, sitting there and taking Fields? That's going to be the tough question, I think. At least for them.
Well, like if we win, let's say we win 2 games. If we win 2 games, just the way it looks now, we jump all the way back to like 7.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
It's like that.
Yeah, it's bananas. So
can't win.
let's take a look real quick at the
cut this
Tankathon
year, Dan.
leaderboard. So we got Jets at 1, Jaguars 2, Washington 3, Dallas 4, Chargers 5, Miami 6 because of the Houston trade with Tunsil. Cincinnati would be 7th. So if we win 2 games right now, because of the Cincinnati's tie, we'd wind up picking 6th. But yeah, dude, that's crazy. Strength of schedule wise, so there's actually a guide, and I think it was Michael Nania that posted it to Jets X Factor about who to root for the New York Jets to get the strength of schedule to work out where the Jaguars have a stronger strength of schedule than the Jets, which would if the Jets tie with the Jaguars, they wind up picking ahead of them. It's interesting. I'm like, basically we're rooting for all of our division opponents to lose, which is what we'd root for anyway. Because it gives us a weaker strength of schedule. And then basically any of the division rivals for the Jaguars we want to win, specifically the Colts. Because if the Colts can lock up that division and lock in a final, by week 16, if we get into week 17 and the Jaguars are playing a Colts team that is resting a Phillip Rivers for the playoffs or resting some of their key players, that's a game they could win. So I'm a big Colts fan the rest of this year. But aside from draft picks and all that sort of stuff, NY Sports MC throws a question at us. He says, Green Bean, you guys should rank the head coaching vacancies. Which teams are most appealing to a head coaching candidate? So I guess let's try to rattle off a few potential head coaches. Off the top of my head, we got Houston already. We got...
Wait, what did he say? I'm sorry. What did he say?
He wants us to rank where we think the most attractive landing spots for head coaches would be. So we got Houston. We have the Falcons, the Jets. I would say Detroit's probably in there. I don't know. Who else is probably in that wheelhouse?
The Bears, maybe?
The Bears I could see. I think you could argue the... I don't think the Giants move on from Judge just yet. I think you could say the what fucking team was I looking at? Minnesota is an interesting one, possibly. I don't know. For me, I think if the Jets get the first pick, we are going to be an attractive landing spot. That's getting to work with a generational quarterback is, pretty high up there. I think on a lot of prospective head coaches' radars. So if the Jets don't get it, then I would say we're going to be drastically lower down that list. I would say the Houston Texans are a team that are not going to be overly appealing because they do not have a first or second round pick this year. And I believe, let me pull up their cap space. I believe they're not in great shape cap-wise. So the Texans next year, according to Over the Cap, are going to be about $10 million over the salary cap. So they're not going to have 2 early picks to get cheaper contracts. They're not going to have enough money to go after any free agents. So for me, if I'm the Texans, I think rolling with Crennel might be a good option anyway. If you, unless you're willing to hire a lackluster head coach potentially, unless they really want to work with Watson, because
that's where I was going to say, I really agree with you, Ryan. I think they would want to work with Watson. To me, he's a top 7 quarterback at the lowest. Like, I think that's really, really appealing to work with. So I would differ with you. I would say they're one of the more appealing.
Greenby, what do you think about the Texans?
Well, that's funny. You know, as each of you spoke, I kind of swung around a little bit. But when initially my thought was, I'm like, oh, yeah. But I think my first thought was Deshaun Watson is there. So the quarterback is there. Their left tackle is there. Like, so, their line is decent, if I remember correctly. But so they don't have much capital, but they have some core pieces that are not only in place, but are excellent, so I don't know. I think it could be attractive, but whoever's coming in there knows that they don't have much to build with, and that can be a problem, and especially letting DeAndre Hopkins go. And the guy, I forget his name, Chris, the running back, he just went to IR. So I think the right kind of person would really like to work with Watson, but I think a lot of people would take pause because they're really up against it, man. So they're right up the middle.
Well, it's an interesting argument because I'm not I would say they look less attractive than I would have otherwise thought initially, because I definitely thought Bieniemy would be going there to work with Watson, and then as I started digging into him the last 2-3 days, I'm like, oh wait, they don't have a first this year, which I knew, but I didn't know they didn't have a second. So it's like, oh, all right, yeah. And then they are up against the cap. I don't know. It's interesting. I think if they're waiting for someone, maybe there's an opportunity for them to wait a season with Crennel, but I don't think you want to waste young years of Watson because he is a good quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see who they can land. I don't think the Atlanta job is overly attractive unless you like Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan's on the back nine of his career, so I don't really see.
Yeah, but he's
got the weapons though, which is nice. So you got Gurley, you got Julio, you got Ridley. There's a lot of exciting stuff there. That division could be up in the air, kind of. Aside from the Buccaneers. Although if you think Brady's only going to play 2 years, Breeze is probably done after this year. You got Bridgewater, who's I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I think he's going to be there for 2, maybe 3 years at most.
Yeah, dude, so that's one of the things I have a problem with Matt Rule. He's running Bridgewater, on design rollouts and stuff like that. I think that's dangerous, man.
I don't think he plans to have him there long. It didn't feel like that. That contract, I think, let me see. I'll pull it up real quick just so we have an idea.
I saw that game last week. I was watching. I'm like, oh my God, man. He's going to die. So
they can get out of his contract after this season, but it's basically a 2-year deal. So next year he has this year he has a $14 million cap hit. Next year he's a $23 million cap hit. If they cut him, they could save $3 million of that $23 million. So I don't think that's going to be enough. I think they'll hold on to him for next year. The year after that, they can cut him and save $21 million because all his guaranteed money is going to be up, and all that's going to be owed is the signing bonus portion that was allocated for that year. So I think he's here next year. I believe Matt, I think we were talking last week. You said Carolina was a dark horse to potentially trade for Sam Darnold.
Yes, and the reason why they made my list for that is because I think, and we saw this against Tampa Bay. I know the final score looked a little bit ugly, but they were in that game for a while. I think they're going to win themselves out of one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks. So I would not be stunned at all if they wanted to take a look at someone through, whether it be the free agent market, maybe they're interested in Jameis Winston or Mitch Trubisky if he breaks free. I think Darnold has a higher upside than either of those 2 guys. But how depressing would it be if Sam Darnold goes to Carolina and figures it out with Matt Rule and Robbie Anderson? That might end me. Oh. Man. I don't know if I could take that.
Well, if we have that, not to mention Matt Rule could definitely go for Sam Darnold because he was going to come to be the Jets head coach because of Sam Darnold. Right. So if he's on the trade block, there is no reason that can't be an option there. I think that makes a lot of sense. It would hurt me. I actually like Carolina. It's as weird as it sounds. I'm like a Saints fan in terms of like NFC teams, but I really like Carolina because I loved running backs growing up, and watching Steven Davis run over guys as a kid was like, this is awesome. I played with him in like NFL Street and like
the best,
barreling over guys. It was fantastic. And so I have a soft spot for Carolina. It would be frustrating. Could you imagine if we're like, oh yeah, you had to pick your corners. We could have had, like Green Bean said, we could have had Joe Brady. We could have had Matt Rule. We could have had Sam Darnold working well with Robbie Anderson. That's friggin' frustrating, to say the least.
And don't forget Teddy Bridgewater was with Sam Darnold for a little while there. And then from what I understand, they bonded quite well. And so to have Sam Darnold maybe behind Bridgewater for a year, which I maintain Sam Darnold would really be well served by a year to calm down. Just go into the background, work on your mechanics, learn an offense, don't have to learn it while you're on the field and everything. I think that would really be a good thing for him. So, and then, look, like you said, Matt Rule wanted to coach Sam Darnold. Teddy Bridgewater worked with Sam Darnold. Robbie Anderson, very, very close to Sam Darnold, said, I have love for Sam Darnold. And he cried and everything. If that could be believed. So
I could see it. Matt's talking us into like more and more Carolina. That connection makes a lot of sense. Could you imagine Teddy Bridgewater? He probably won't be frustrated because, we drafted Sam Darnold, and he knew when he was coming here he was going to get traded. It was never going to be a long-term thing. So I think he's come to terms with that. But how weird would it be to get replaced by Sam Darnold in New York and then get replaced by him in Carolina just a few years later? It would be a little goofy. KT100 says, what if we don't land number 1 overall? Why not call the Packers and see if we can trade one of our firsts and something else for Aaron Rodgers and pawn Sam off to the highest bidder? That's an interesting thought. I don't know what it would have. What does Rodgers' contract look like? Let's take a look at that.
100, man. Why are we trading for Aaron Rodgers? They're not a quarterback away from being a competitive team. That does nothing to help.
Yeah, well, that's just it too. And then if they
saw my draft, we would be good quick with my 18 players.
So Rodgers has no more guaranteed money after this season. If we were to trade for him, it would be for his year 38, 39, and year 40 season. So it would be 3 years. It would be $14.7 million, $25 million, and $25 million for the next 3 years. But since he has no guaranteed money left, you're probably going to have to renegotiate that contract. Yeah, I like Rodgers. I just, I don't know. Brady's playing until he's 45. Could we get 7 years of Rodgers and then trade out a number 1 overall and just get like, well, I guess if we don't have number 1 overall, I don't know. What do you think, Green Bean?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's probably high time that we just build our team with young guys, and you know what I mean? And I think that's what Joe Douglas wants to do. I mean, he has a lot of money to spend this year, so he's going to have to spend some of it. I saw in the chat, somebody mentioned J.J. Watt. I don't think it's happening because J.J. Watt, the reason he would leave the Texans is because he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. But something like that with Bud Dupree, some edge and a wide receiver, Allen Robinson. So he'll do that. But the majority of what he wants to do is to build through the draft. That's how he was taught. It's tried and true. The flash in the pan kind of big signings and all that. It rarely works, man, especially when you're trying to build your core that way. It just doesn't work. So I don't know. If we had all the pieces in place and like Matt said, we're a quarterback away, okay, I'd think about it. But I'd rather use that second first-round pick on Kyle Pitts or somebody like that.
That's the tight end from, is it Florida?
No, hold on, I forget, man. I'm just.
I think it. No, I think.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure he's a tight end. I when I was going through all my my breakdowns, I had tight end considered in the late first, and I was like, you know what, I'd rather Herndon and Griffin and those guys sort of like hopefully play better under Adam Gase. I see a question over on Jet Nation for him, and I'll rattle this off real quick. Which player is most likely to have a Gase rebound? Like, Gase is gone. Who's going to have the biggest bounce back year next season? Matt, I'll throw it to you first.
There's so many choices. You could pretty much pick anyone out. I'll go Herndon because I think there is a lot of talent there. I don't know what's wrong with him. I have a hard time figuring out what the hell is going on. But I still buy into the talent. I think he could still be a tight end who can give you 700 receivers.
Green Bean, what about you?
Well, that was my thought too, but I'll say something different for interesting sake. Sam Darnold.
Ooh, okay. Explain.
I think.
Is it going to be with us? I guess he's just going to have a bounce back year elsewhere.
Yeah. And it might not be the next year, but I think he'll be the player that bounces back post Gase better than most. I also think Connor McGovern is suffering under this regime as well. I mean, there's no other explanation for it unless he's just fallen off a cliff, which I find it hard to believe, man. He's not old. So I think he's another one, but I think Herndon will be the one that if we do in fact fire Gase and hire a competent coach, I think Herndon's coming back strong. At least serviceable, like legit,
Yeah, so you guys hit the nail on the head in terms of who I think could probably play well. I didn't really consider Sam because I was thinking we're trading him, but yeah, so I would say Sam could have the biggest rebound, I guess, first off, going to a good team. Herndon is the one for us that I think makes the most sense, and then you hit the nail on the head, Green Bean, with McGovern. He was a top 10 center when we signed him. There's no way this guy drops to like one of the worst centers in the league in 1 year without it being some sort of issue with the blocking scheme or with the way plays are called or assignments, whatever it is. I think he's got way more potential than what we've been able to get out of him. And aside from those guys, hey, maybe you say Griffin. I think the tight ends have really been the biggest thing that have hurt the Jets. Like, Sam was so used to having the tight ends all year the last 2 years, and it just, I don't know. They seem like the prime candidate, so I'm right there with you. Submissions says, what do you guys think about our chances of pulling Dabo Swinney away from Clemson and keeping him with Trevor? Keep up the good work. I love Dabo Swinney. I would absolutely go for him. So in my mock draft, I really wanted to do that, but I didn't want to make it too crazy over the top, unrealistic, because the dude's getting paid $9 million a year to stay at Clemson. With the Jets are paying Adam Gase $3 million a year. Do you see the Johnsons wanting to pay Adam Gase that money plus $9 million a year for Swinney? I don't really see it. I would love to see it happen because not only are you keeping him with Trevor, but you're also keeping that offense with him as well. So now rather than learning an offense for a year or two with Trevor, you're hitting the ground running on rookie contract year one. And I think it gives you the best shot to win if you get Swinney. I just don't know if he's the correct type of guy to run an NFL franchise because the mentality is a little different. And why would you want to leave? The guy's a god at Clemson right now.
Right. A commenter, Strickland, said he's not walking away from full control and $9 million a year.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
The worst organization in the NFL for 1.5.
Yeah, just a shade under your last salary.
Let me ask you guys though, do you know how long Gase's contract is? It was all cryptic and in the beginning. I don't know. I didn't know it ever was released, so I don't know how long it is. Do we know?
I don't think so.
I thought I saw it. Let me pull it up.
Oh, weird.
Maybe I'm wrong, and it's not $3 million a year from Adam Gase. Maybe it's $3 million a year for Joe Douglas. That might be what I saw.
Douglas has $6 million a year, doesn't he?
Is it $6 million a year? 6 years. I think it's 6 years, $3 million a year. I thought that's what it was.
Isn't it crazy? Like, we'll pay an aging cornerback, $10-12 million a year, and we won't give the guy running the whole operation more than $2 million. Like, what is that?
Yeah, bizarre. That makes no sense to me.
I guess because it doesn't apply to the salary cap, so like they have to spend that money by league rules. But if you can get a coach for $50 a week, you can.
Yeah, I guess you could. There's no.
I would do it.
I don't know who you're getting for $50 a week to make it
Green Bean.
look good.
I'll tell you that. You can get Green Bean $50 a week. I'll do it.
$50 a week. That sounds fantastic. ignore the media. You say on to whatever the next thing, on to the Chargers
Right.
each week.
Let me
And you
in
just
there,
say, oh,
dude.
sorry.
I'll get everybody in. Or we'll
Let's see
tank,
what
right?
what else we got. Let's see, Marino fake spike. What are you guys talking about in there?
Jets disappointments.
Dark Demonic says, "Man, the players the Jets passed on makes you want to throw up." Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That's about right. I'm pretty sure when we took our Darius Stewart, which is the player we took when we traded back with the Elflein pick in 2017, I want to say the Jets also passed on like Kareem Hunt and who was there was like 3 or 4 like really good guys in like the stretch of picks
Yeah, it was
between us.
Nelson Aguilar, wasn't it?
I don't know if Aguilar was in there. I'm kind of glad we don't have him, but he is playing well this year for Oakland.
Yeah, but he was in the late first, right, Aguilar?
I don't know. Let's see. Let's
Yeah,
go.
Was that 2016?
I don't know. My brain just like I couldn't remember.
Drafted in the first round of 2015.
There's a lot of stuff. He was 2015.
Yeah, Green Bean's just making stuff up.
Yeah, it happens.
Let's see. I'll pull up the end. Let's pull up the 2017 draft. Let's go.
Good
Go
news
down
is
the list. So the Jets picked. They were picking 70th. They dropped down to, let's see, 79. So they really only dropped 9 picks. So actually, so the other players that were in the third round. It wasn't that they passed on Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt went in the third round after the Jets. Chris Godwin went after them. Who is it? Kenny Galladay was later on. Yeah, there's a lot of good names that we could have had.
Yeah, Godwin, right?
Yeah, we went with our Darius Stewart, who had like 50 all-purpose yards for the New York Jets in his career for the.
He's gone by year 2. It's crazy.
Kamara went 3 picks ahead of us that year. He went 67. The Jets had the 70th pick. God, that would have been cool. The dreaded double friggin' safety draft BS. Let's see. What else are we talking about over here? Which one of you 3 is going to bite the bullet, kidnap Adam Gase, and chain him to the basement radiator far away from MetLife? Oh, man, Anthony. I would say
MetLife, so.
I'm pretty close to MetLife. I would say I'm the most likely suspect if Adam Gase goes missing. I don't have a basement, so you're never going to find which radiator I locked him up to. if that happens.
He'd be sitting on that chair back there, right?
Yeah, he's gonna be sitting back there on my little Jets friggin' thing, or he's gonna sit on the dog mat right there. He's in the doghouse.
Oh yeah,
that's what it is.
Just do the live stream while he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it. I'm in Dania Beach, Florida right now. It's a hike for me.
Ooh, this is someone that Green Bean wanted to talk about. Snipes says, not sure about you guys, but I'm super excited to see Harvey Langi play this week. Green Bean, what are you thinking about Langi?
I am too. I mean, this is a guy who sees an opportunity to turn some heads, and he's showing you what effort actually looks like. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if everybody on your team was applying that type of effort, not like, he ran past me, I guess I'll just sit here. You know, like he missed him, the quarterback, jumped at him, missed him again, fell on his face. He threw the pass, and Langi made the tackle. You know, and that's the one play that gets the most. It's like the most hubbub, and rightfully so. But he was doing that type of stuff all game, just 100% effort. And if we get a coach that inspires the players, and we get some real talent in here that people have belief that we can do it, I think you'll see a lot more. But I think Harvey Langi is showing everybody, hey man, I'm for real. Like I want this. And that's going to go a long way with football guys. Football people recognize that type of thing. And I think with Avery being traded and Blake Cashman being hurt and everything else going on, he's got an opportunity, man. And hey, if he can tackle people, I'm in. I love him. It's exciting.
Matt, how you feeling about Langi?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if he's going to be a player or not. But like Green Bean said, like at this point, show me effort. And he's trying. Like you're going to get an effort out of Bless Austin and Bryce Hall and Quinnen Williams. So like that stuff I'm excited about. Like I want to see the little things. I want to see Denzel Mims get his catches. I want to see P. Ryan. I'm not really all that high on him, but I would much rather see him or Ty Johnson get carries than Frank Gore. Those are the things that we're rooting. I hope he plays well. Again, I don't know if he's a player or not, but he puts in a much better effort than 75% of this team.
Right. And some people, that's going to affect them, right? Like when they're right next to him and he's doing all that, it's like it has to affect anyone that's trying to secure a job. Like Matt said, the young kids are going to see that and be like, all right, well, that's how to play, rather than watching Pierre Desir, loaf around. It's like, okay, well, this is how we play, and it'd be nice to see more of that, without winning, of course. We don't want to win, but yeah, I think it's exciting to watch the young guys. And Harvey Langi, he's been around a little while, but I'm excited for him. Hey, man, Zach Thomas was never supposed to make it. He was too small, too slow. And we all know how that turned out,
I wouldn't mind seeing him. So Langi, he is 28 years old. He's in his third season this year. Last game was definitely his best game with us. He's mainly been used on special teams. I'd love to see him play. I'd love to see him play well. The young guys, Mims, P. Ryan, all those guys are the ones I'm kind of looking at. And you hit this nail on the head. You're saying, who wants to win any games? If you guys want to get in on the discussion with us, down below there's a link to an app called Sided. Basically, this show, we get a lot of people watching it after the fact, and every time we do a comment question, we just do it for the whole day. This one's going to last a week. If you want to get in on the conversation, you can vote on do the Jets go 0-16 with the link in the description down below. And if you are going back and forth and you're having a discussion with everyone, you can actually win Amazon gift cards based on how many people are kind of going back and forth and how many likes you get on your post. So if you guys want to do that, you can click that in the description down below. Right now, believe it or not, do you want the Jets to go 0-16? 42.9% of people are saying yes. 57.1% say no. So that scares me. I very much want the Jets to go the 0-16. I don't want to see the Jets win any games this year. Let's see. What else are you guys talking about? Tony Lee. Can we get an offense-heavy offseason and draft, please? We only draft defensive players in the first round. I don't care if we lose in shootouts. At least it's entertaining to watch. That's what we were talking about earlier. We just want to see a fun game, week in and week out. I don't care if we go 8-8 for a few years. Like, let's just ball out. Let's get the number one offense. And, I just want to be excited. I want to know there's a shot to win each week. Right now, there is no shot for the Jets to win almost every week. How do you guys feel about an offense-heavy draft and offseason? Green Bean.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I would like to see an edge rusher taken a little bit higher somewhere in there. But I think, yeah, man, I thought last year's draft with the first two picks was fantastic, exactly what we needed. I didn't like veering off of the offense as soon as we did. And we came back, and most of the players we drafted were offense, and that's great. But I would like to see a legit, first round wide receiver type, a pass catching tight end, like a Kelsey type of impact on a game. Maybe even a higher round running back, second round. If Etienne makes it there, or Najee Harris, I would take him in the second round. So, yeah, I agree with that. But, again, I really want to see edge, and cornerback's got to be taken, and probably safety at some point. But, yeah, I'd like to see a higher pick given to the edge for once.
Matt, how are you feeling about this offseason? Do you want to see a heavy offense offseason and draft?
Yes, I really do. because the Jets have neglected that area for so long, and I am just sick and tired of watching like ancient offense. Like they are turning back the clock decades. We're not in the 2020s. Like it's not even remotely close. I would like to put up points. I would like to have an exciting offense. Go into a game and hey, my team has a chance to score 30 today. I don't feel that about any of these games coming up. The Jets will be lucky to break double digits in some of these games. So I definitely think that wide receiver is a position need. Offensive line is also a position in need. If you're taking Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, quarterback should be, figured out. You're going to need a running back. I usually am not someone who likes to draft a running back early, but with the Jets' number of picks, they'll have 4 in the first 2 rounds after trading Sam Darnold. You can sell me on taking a running back in the second round this year. So, yeah, I would really like to go offense heavy. And if you're going to take a defensive player, it better only be a corner or a edge rusher.
Yeah, for me, offense heavy all the way. First overall pick is going to be Trevor Lawrence. In our second pick, I had, right now it's the 20th overall pick with Seattle. I guess that is probably going to change. I have us taking Devonta Smith as the receiver later in the second round. First pick in the second round, I really want to see the Jets get Kenny Gainwell. I would like ETN. If ETN's there, awesome. I think he's going in the first round. Najee Harris, I wouldn't be upset with. I like Gainwell a lot. From the little bit of tape I've watched on him, he's only played 1 season. He had 4 family members pass away of COVID, so that's why he opted out for this season. And then after that, I would probably go, if we're saying Sam gets traded for a second, I have the Jets taking Daniel Falele, the right tackle from was it Minnesota? I think it was Minnesota. The guy is 6'9", 400 pounds. Enormous right tackle. So I would go very much heavy on the offensive side. I do agree with Green being cornerback and edge rusher, specifically edge rusher for me is the position I'd like us to attack. I think we should get 1 in free agency. I think we should draft 1 with our top 4 picks, 5 picks probably. Edge, that second pick in the first round could be edge or corner. That would be the only other position other than wide receiver, depending what happens on the wide receiver front in the draft. RJ McPott says, dream scenario, Jaguars win 2 games and we find a way to win against Seattle and New England, all while simultaneously ruining their playoff standing. That would be amazing, and I have to go into another comment right below it because Mumtaz says, ban RJ McPott for wishing 2 wins on us. I want to see, look, if there were 2 wins that the Jets had to get, the Seahawks and the Patriots are the 2 teams I want them to beat. Now, that said, I want to go 0-16. But if we had to have 1 win, for me, it's Seattle. I want Seattle. I want to just embarrass Jamal Adams. I want to make him regret. He's not going to regret because he's on a good team. But I would like him to, shut up for once. That would be kind of nice. What are you guys thinking about the prospect of the Jags winning 2 games and then us beating Seattle and New England? If you had to pick a game or 2 games, what are you guys picking, Matt?
I want Jacksonville to win every week. I want to make this as easy as possible for the Jets to get the number 1 overall pick. So if let's operate under the assumption that the Jaguars win again and the Jets could win and you don't have to worry about it. I think I would take Seattle over New England. This isn't like the New England teams of old. I don't know. Without Tom Brady, it's not as satisfactory. I don't know. So I would take a beatdown of Seattle if I had to choose one.
Green Bean, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. And again, like everything that was just said, I agree with. I would love to see the Jaguars go on a tear and Luton give them the impression that he might even be a franchise quarterback, all that stuff. I want him to have all that. I want him to go 4-12 and let us have some breathing room. But if we have to win, I would really love to stuff it in Jamal Adams' gullet. I would love, just like you said, I would love Denzel Mims to catch a pass right over him. Or like P. Ryan's running around, Jamal Adams is coming in for his patented smash, and Denzel Mims creams him. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
That would it would be so heartwarming. I really wanted Le'Veon Bell to be here and watch him like stiff arm Jamal Adams into the ground. Alas, not going to happen. RJ fires back and says, "Okay, just one win. Let's bump New England." Yeah, I would agree with Matt. It's not as satisfying with Brady not there anymore. I think Seattle would be the win I want us to get if we had to get one. Max is NY Jets says, when the Jets hire their head coach, what are some offensive and defensive coordinators that you would like? He lists off offensive coordinator Joe Brady or Todd Monken. I can tell you right now, Joe Brady's not going to leave to become another offensive coordinator, so that's probably not going to happen. Dan Quinn as defensive coordinator. So for me, I had Joe Brady being our head coach. I chose Mike Kafka, the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback coach, as our offensive coordinator. I think he's probably going to fill in for Bieniemy when Bieniemy leaves. But if we could steal him away to become the offensive coordinator for Trevor Lawrence, then you have someone who may not be experienced calling plays, but you have Joe Brady there that can call the plays, with Kafka focusing on the quarterback himself. Defensive-wise, if we get Joe Brady, I would like the Jets to bring in someone who can help with the secondary and help some of the passing woes that we've had on defense. In my mock draft, I had us going with Aaron Glenn, the former Jets player. He is the defensive backs coach for the New Orleans Saints. He worked with Joe Brady a little bit while he was there, has connections to the New York Jets. So those would be kind of where I'd look to go offensive coordinator-wise and defensive coordinator-wise. Green Bean, was there anyone you were kind of thinking of offensive or defensive wise, or both?
For our coordinators, yeah, I like the idea of somebody like a Dan Quinn, coming on board as the defensive coordinator. I think, and I like the idea of Aaron Glenn too. I mean, I don't know if he's ready to be a coordinator yet, but to have something like that come around would really make me happy. I was a huge Aaron Glenn fan. I remember watching that draft. I was psyched when they got him. I just love him to death. And he was a scout for us for a little while too. So I like Aaron Glenn. That would be cool. As far as offensive coordinators, I don't know yet. How's that? And I'm sorry to say that. I like to have answers, but I haven't put too much thought into that yet. You know what I mean? But I would like, just like everything you like Kafka, I think he's going to stay in Kansas City. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Matt, what about you? Who are you thinking about?
Monken's interesting. I don't think he would leave Georgia unless it was for a head coaching job, though. I really like Mike McDaniel, the run game coordinator from San Francisco. He's Kyle Shanahan's right-hand man. So if he's half the man that Shanahan is, I think the Jets would be in pretty good shape as an OC. And on the defensive side of the ball, okay, I pulled up a list on my phone because I was curious for some other names for inspiration. Sure. Chris Richard was one name that came up, but someone on this list that was interesting, the defensive coordinator for the Wisconsin Badgers. Do you know who that is?
I have no idea who that is.
Jim Leonard.
Really? Oh, that's an interesting old school Jim Leonard. He feels like that's a Baltimore connection, right?
Well,
yeah, he was with Baltimore. Sure.
Yeah, and the thing is that he was known as an extremely intelligent football player. Like, he knew football and he called the defense and everything for Rex.
Yeah, well, so you bring that up. What about this? Joe Douglas was in Baltimore for the Rex years. Does Rex come back to be the DC as we get Joe Brady in here for our offensive coordinator? That's a whole tinfoil hat in and of itself. I would love me some sexy Rexy, but I don't think he's coming back to coach our defense.
Right. I mean, I like it in concept. I think in application it would probably be ugly. You know what I mean? I just don't think Rex can anymore now that he's been a head coach twice and he's a talking head on TV.
Yeah, he's getting too much money.
Keep him on TV, man. He's good on TV.
Yeah. Keep him out
Derek Eric Rosenweig. Thank you for becoming the newest member of the Jets Talk 24/7 channel. Much appreciated, dude. If you guys want to join the Jets Talk channel, there's a little join button below the screen, I think. If it's not, you can click on my homepage. It is over there somewhere. Let's see. Charlie says, did you guys hear that we might take all defense? You're a bad person, Charlie. I don't like you tonight.
I heard that too. Did you hear that?
I heard that from Charlie Morrow.
But Charlie.
Yeah, there was that article that said the Jets are going to be focusing on defense this year. You guys didn't see that one? I read.
It was on the Onion, right?
Yeah, hope so. I forget who wrote it, but it was. I read like a paragraph. I'm like, I don't need to ingest this. This is horseshit. You know.
Rika says Seattle might not even make the playoffs with that defense. Imagine getting pick 20. I think it would be pick 18 because they moved it to 7 teams per conference now instead of 6. And honestly, if we miss a game, it could be 8. So that would kind of hurt us. Right now, Seattle is, where are they? They are, so we would be picking 21st right now. With the Seattle pick, they're currently in a wild card spot. What's the next closest team? Okay, so where am I looking here? Is it the Rams? Yeah, so it's the Rams are currently leading that division at 6-3. Seattle is 6-3, and Arizona is 6-3. Those two are in wild card spots, and then San Francisco is 4-6 at pick 12. I had someone reach out to me actually. What do you guys think about this? They said, what if we trade Sam Darnold and our later first-round pick to San Francisco and get into the top 10? Now, this was, I think, assuming San Francisco was in the top 10 at that point. I don't know where they actually end up finishing, all things considered. Do you think we could use Sam Darnold as a trade chip with another team to get higher in the draft as opposed to sitting back and kind of, maybe just getting a second-round pick or something like that? Matt, what do you think about that?
That's really interesting. I haven't really thought about that. I don't really know what the pick value would be in order to move from, let's say, 20 up to 10, and then assume that Sam is worth a second if the points would make sense on that. But I'm not opposed to moving Darnold and that later first to get up higher in the first, because as we know, in the top 10, you're more likely to hit on your picks the higher you are. Sure, there's still a chance you can miss, but I think I would much rather move up and try to get the higher end prospect. So sure, I'm about it.
Green Bean, what about you? What do you think about trading Sam plus that later Seattle pick to move up higher in the draft?
Yeah, I think if you like someone, like let's just, because I really like this kid. Let's say Kyle Pitts he's there at pick 17, and you can get up there by trading 21 in Sam Darnold and take the guy you already have, Trevor Lawrence. That would be cool. You know what I mean? Because Sam Darnold is a guy that you're trying to get rid of, and you want this guy, Kyle Pitts, and you already have the Seattle pick from the trade. So it's like basically trading Sam Darnold for Kyle Pitts. And yeah, not really, but you know what I mean? I don't know. I think that would be interesting. Like Matt said, I mean, we have to do all the math and all that sort of stuff, but just on the front end of it, I think it's an interesting idea, and I think it's worth considering. Sure.
So let's spitball a little bit of NFL draft value chart, and let's see where these sorts of things would kind of have us falling. So let's see, the Jets, let's say we'll just use it where we're at right now. So the 49ers they have them at 18. This can't be an updated one, but the picks are all still roughly the same. This is Draft Tech. It should be, this is the normal one where 3,000 is the first pick. So if we value Sam as a late second, that's kind of where we were thinking. We were thinking Steelers, the 49ers, the Saints, maybe he can, who knows. But a late second round pick would be about 400 points on the higher end. Between 400 and like 300 points is what we're looking at. To move up from where Seattle's pick currently is at 21, the Jets would have 800 points right there. So you're talking 1,200 points at a max. So that would get you up to pick 12. Now that said, Sam is a quarterback. So is there a weird sort of inflation that happens with Sam being the quarterback the same way we look at a quarterback at the top end of the draft, where you could get a bunch of first round picks when the trade value chart kind of says like that's not really what the value is. So that's interesting. It's going to be. I'm fascinated to see where Sam Darnold falls in the trade value spectrum, because I think there's some people around the league that hold him in such high regard. It wouldn't shock me for the Jets to pull, like, let's say Pittsburgh wins the Super Bowl and the Jets are picking, they're picking 32. They're like, yeah, we'll give up a first for Sam. Why not? I don't know. It's like, it feels too high.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it would have to be like picks 30, 31, 32. I don't think you're getting anything.
Green Bean, what do you think about, I don't know, what do you think Sam's trade value is? Do you think it's still a second round pick?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, look, it's all just baloney and hearsay, but that second and a fifth thing makes sense to me. I think, but I like what you just said. It's like, really what it boils down to is this. This is the mentality. If a team needs a quarterback or wants a quarterback, and they look at where they're picking, the example, they're picking 32, but their quarterback is Ben Roethlisberger. Another year or so, he's going to be leaving. They want to bring a quarterback to groom for a year behind Big Ben. Who they're going to get at 32? Do they look at that draft board? They weigh him against Sam Darnold, and do they think that the guy they're going to get there is better potential than Sam Darnold? And if they feel like, hey, Sam Darnold is a better swing at what we want to do here, then it's worth it. So that could happen. But I think it's safe to think somewhere around a second and a fifth it makes sense to me, like I said. And so if you're looking at the second, you just go somewhere in the middle for argument's sake now. So 440, 430. And then how much is it to move up from 21 to, let's say, 14? And you just did this math, didn't you? So, I mean, it makes sense. So it's about right. It gets you till about 14 or 13. So if somebody's at 15 or 17, then they're getting a deal, And then if you throw in a sixth or something, I don't know. You know what I mean? It can get nuts. Yeah.
So Hector reached out, and Hector says, do you think the Bears will do business with the Jets at the quarterback position? That's an interesting situation. Like, let's say the Jets are looking to trade Sam to the Bears. What player could you potentially see that you might be able to pull away from him? The player off the top of my head that I'd be gunning for, if that were the situation, would be Khalil Mack. That would be the guy I want. So he would be, you'd have 4 years left on his contract. He'd have one more year of big guaranteed money. He would be 30, 31, 32, 33 years old for those 4 years. His base salary, because the Jets would not be paying the prorated bonus that was signed for his signing bonus, the Jets' cap hits would be $17 million, $12 million, $17 million, and then $17.5 million. That is real attractive. Now, I don't know if they'd want to give up Mac at all. So basically, his cap hits for them are, over those years, 26, 27, 25, 23. Like, massive cap hits. I'm not sure how the trade would work out, though, because it looks like I think they'd probably have to trade him after the June 1st deadline to kind of split that money up. But that would be friggin' huge. I was looking at his Pro Football Focus grades. He has never had below an 86 on Pro Football Focus. Since his rookie year, he has been, in terms of edge rushers in the league, according to Pro Football Focus, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 6th, 2nd. Last year he was 12th. This year he is 2nd in the league in edge rushing.
Hey, Rob S25G Lagoon says throw in Mosley too.
Ooh, I would get rid of Mosley. I don't think we're going to be able to trade him though. His contract is brutal.
You say we'll
His
give you Darnold and Mosley for Mac.
I would do that in a heartbeat. Um,
Me
Let
too,
me
man.
see.
10 seconds.
CJ. Oh God, there's two CJ Mosleys. um, CJ Mosley, the inside linebacker.
They already
So
have
Mosley's. What was that?
they already have Roquan Smith though for inside linebacker.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to want to take on the CJ Mosley contract because he didn't have a huge signing bonus, so his base salary is absolutely massive. Next year is a nice year. It's only going to cost us about $7.5 million to have CJ on the team. But after that, any team that trades for him would pay 16, 17, and 17 over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So I don't see it happening. Let's see. What else?
But it's a good idea, Ryan, and I like it.
I like the idea. I think that's thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
What you saying, as in Super Saiyan, says, hey, did you guys see the recent Trevor Lawrence interview? They asked him about the Jets in the NFL draft this year. He's coming out and going to the Jets. He even said they blow what he said out of proportion. Look, I didn't see the interview. Trevor Lawrence is 100% coming out of Clemson this year. There's nothing in my mind that's going to make me believe that he is staying in school and foregoing $30 million worth of career earnings. I think he's definitely coming out. Will he want to play for the Jets? I think the answer is going to be yes, because the alternative is not very good either.
Mm-hmm.
And being the first overall pick, going to a city like New York and really running this town, he's going to be a god. If he can win a Super Bowl for the Jets, or even just take us to like a lot of playoff victories and like just have a long sustained career, the guy's going to be a legend. You go down to Jacksonville, you're second fiddle to all the college teams. Like your Clemson team's going to be significantly more popular than the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you guys think about Trevor Lawrence, Matt?
Yeah, I never bought for a second that he was going to stay at Clemson or that he would pull an Eli or Peyton Manning and like not want to go to whatever team was picking first. That's just not the way that this guy is built based on everything that I've seen and read about him. I think he's a competitor that likes the challenge, and he gets the deal, man. He understands what's going on. So I never bought it for a second. So yeah, it definitely was blown out of proportion.
Green Bean, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. It's like you really had to dig there to make it mean what people were trying to make it mean. It's like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I never heard it that way. I watched the whole interview. I was like, what is this? Like, what are we doing here? I think, again, and we've mentioned this before in previous live streams, but the guy always said he was coming out his junior year. He played a full 3 years in college, so it's not like he has more to do there. His stock is never going to be higher than it is. It might maintain, but it can't get any higher. If he stays and risks all that, especially with COVID showing everybody how fickle this really is, it's a foolish move. So I think that he's definitely coming out, and I don't see any issue with him playing for the New York Jets unless we keep Adam Gase. And that would be the only thing I can see driving a stick in our spokes. That's it.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely coming here. I don't think assuming we have the first overall pick, I think he's absolutely coming here. I don't think he's going to hold out. I don't think anything like that is going to happen. But we are at the end of our show now. If you want to keep the conversation going, there is a link in the description to the Sided app. You can win yourself some Amazon gift cards just by sharing your opinion on there. So click on that. Just kind of have fun with it. We'll see how it actually works. I've never actually used it until this week, so we'll see how it goes. Any last words for the panel? Green Bean.
Yeah, well, look, I'm happy that we did this yet again. This one flew by for me, so really cool. I love the chat. I love everybody in there. We do a live stream on Jet Nation's YouTube page for every game. A lot of the guys in the chat show up. It's really a good time. We just commiserate and we make the game more enjoyable. I'd love to have you stop by. And that's that.
Matt, any last words for the panel?
Yes, new episodes of Just Jets dropping tomorrow. We'll be talking Jamal Adams, Sam Darnold missing time, and answering your voicemails. So give it a listen, please.
Guys, that has been our panel. Matt and Green Bean, thank you so much for being on here tonight. If you want to check out their channels, links are going to be in the description down below. We will be back here next week, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. My name is Ryan. I've been your pilot. This is Jets Talk, signing off. Jets.